What is up, Armchair Fandomaniacs? This is The Real Last Jedi bringing you another Monday evening movie review. This week we'll be covering the 1984 movie Red Dawn, starring Patrick Swayze, C. Thomas Howell, Charlie Sheen, Lea Thompson, Jennifer Grey, and Powers Boothe in a short guest appearance. Red Dawn currently stands at a 65% Rotten Tomatoes score, a 6.4 out of 10 IMDb score, and a 6.8 out of 10 Metacritic score. Red Dawn opens with an older brother dropping his younger brother and his friend off for school, and the first scene we see is they're in a history class with the teacher talking to them about how Genghis Khan and the Mongols used to invade. When they would invade a people, how they would kill everything in their path. Immediately after this lesson in history class, they look outside and they see paratroopers landing all around them. Well, this leads to the teacher going outside to find out what's going on. And when he walks outside, he gets shot, and the invading forces, who end up being Russians and Cubans, start shooting up the school. Well, this immediately leads to the students fleeing the school, and the older brother, Jed Eckert, played by Patrick Swayze, pulling up in his pickup truck. And when it's all said and done, the only person in this group of kids who end up fleeing to the mountains that actually knew what they were doing was Jed. You can see him from the time they leave the school till the time they get into the mountains, planning ahead. He's thinking everything through. They end up stopping on the outside of town. He ends up picking up 5 other boys, but they stop at the outside of town, and they end up stocking up on food and guns and any other supplies they may need to survive in the mountains. They're in the mountains for a short period of time when Jed Eckert, Matt Eckert, and Robert, the character played by C. Thomas Howell, Matt Eckert being played by Charlie Sheen, walk back into town to see if they can find out any news. And when they get back into town, they realize it's been taken over by communist forces, Soviet forces. Remember, this movie was made in 1984, so it was during the Cold War, before the Soviet Union had actually failed and the Berlin Wall had actually come down. But when they get back into town, they find out that the Soviets have taken over their little town of Calumet, Colorado, and they go into a store, and a girl tells them that they've taken a lot of people to re-education camps, which is actually located at the local drive-in theater. When they show up at the drive-in theater, Matt Eckert and Jed Eckert are able to locate their dad within the camp, and the dad tells them everything that has been going on. He explains to them why he had been so hard on them growing up, that things like this is why he had been so hard on them, that they're going to have to survive without him now. We just see in basically the first third of this movie, just everything these kids had grown to know and love just ends in one day. They go back to the mountains. They leave their dad there. They go back to the mountains, and the rest of this movie involves just periodic events that push the movie forward, and it's told from 2 different perspectives. One from the kids that are hiding out in the mountains to one of the military leaders in the town of Calumet who's responsible for this part of the invasion. There's a scene in the movie where some of the Soviet forces are out sightseeing, and they happen upon the kids in the mountain, where the kids end up killing these 3 Soviet forces, which then pushes you to the this military leader in the town of Calumet realizing that they have what they call guerrillas, which are not guerrillas. They're actually just kids that actually are from this town who have been forced into the mountains, but they realize they label these kids as guerrillas, and from their perspective for the rest of the movie, they're trying to figure out how to deal with these kids. The movie then shifts back after these 3 soldiers are killed in the mountains out sightseeing. We discover that an Air Force pilot, a colonel in the United States Air Force, played by Powers Boothe, is shot down, and the kids find him and take him in, and it's through this character that we actually find out what has led up to all of this. He tells how that the Russians invaded using commercial airlines like they did in Afghanistan. He tells how the Nicaraguan and the Cuban forces were allowed to come through the southern border because of infiltration, that they were supposed to link up with other Soviet forces that were coming down through Alaska, and how the United States military stopped them, how that the battle lines had pretty much stabilized. But it's through the character played by Powers Boothe that we learn a lot about what led up to this. But before Powers Boothe's character is discovered after being shot down, one of the kids sees them executing prisoners from this re-education camp, which is their way of dealing with what they're referring to as guerrillas, which also leads to the kids deciding to fight back when they witness these executions. It's one of the more emotional moments in the film when Patrick Swayze character's Jed is trying to console the other kids who have just found out that their parent has been executed. But as this movie plays out, we just simply witness encounter after encounter of these kids trying to fight back against this occupying force, trying to avenge their parents' death. Through all of these encounters that these kids have fighting against this occupying force, the final conclusion of this movie leads us to there only being 4 of them left, which was Matt and Jed Eckert, played by Patrick Swayze and Charlie Sheen, the character played by Lea Thompson, and one of the other minor characters out of this group of kids, being the only 4 left. And what ends up happening is Jed and Matt Eckert decide to attack an installation of this occupying force of Soviets and Cubans, and the reason for them attacking is so that they can cause a distraction that would allow these other 2 characters to escape into the free zone of America. Matt Eckert, played by Charlie Sheen, tells Lea Thompson's character that they're all used up, but they're going to attack this installation and cause a diversion so they can escape. But in the more poetic moment in the movie, if you go back to the very beginning, the teacher teaching the history class, when this invasion happens, when this attack happens on the school, outside the school, when this invading force begins their action, the teacher is in the middle of telling them the story about the Han Dynasty, and how that the teacher is telling them about Genghis Khan, and how the Mongols would create a semicircle and begin closing it in on each end as they invaded, and they would kill everything in its path, and they would just close each end of this semicircle until everything was enclosed. And then at the end of the lesson, he tells the kids, as the invasion happens, how that the son of the Mongols, the leader of the Mongols, asked that the last living creature be allowed to live. And in the closing of Red Dawn, after Jed and Matt Eckert carry out this attack, Matt is fatally wounded, and the older brother Jed is carrying him. And this is when the military leader, who's supposed to be a Cuban, spots him, and instead of shooting him, he throws his gun away. And we had seen earlier through the movie as this movie played out, that this character was becoming hard or softened to the events that all of this had led to. And he, before this attack started, he had been writing to his wife how that he just wanted to come home and be done with all of this. If you've never seen Red Dawn from 1984, I suggest you find it somewhere and go watch it. There's a lot of things in this movie that still hold up. Maybe it's just nostalgia for me, but I'm kind of with the majority of people. Like the scores I gave you earlier in the video, it's got a Rotten Tomatoes score of 65%. It's got an IMDb score of 6.4 out of 10 and a Metacritic score of 6.8 out of 10. So by and large, audiences have about the same opinion as I do, around 65 to 70% like it. I would give this movie personally a 7 out of 10, but on this channel I'm going to give it 3.5 armchairs out of 5. If you've enjoyed this video and would like to support this channel, I would ask that you subscribe to my channel, hit the like button, leave a comment in the comment section below, share this video. You can follow me on Twitter at Armchair_Fandom, and you can join the Facebook group Armchair Fandom on Facebook. Thank you and have a good day.